Welcome to Alien Whispers. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Now, let's dive into the story. The air in Outpost Zeta's casino is thick with the stench of cheap liquor, burnt wiring, and the musky sweat of a dozen alien species packed shoulder to shoulder. Neon lights flicker overhead, casting jagged shadows across the crowded floor where merchants, mercenaries, and outlaws mingle in a chaotic dance of greed and desperation. Outpost Zeta, a bustling trade hub on the galaxy's edge, thrives on deals made in smoke-filled rooms and bets placed under the watchful eyes of those who'd sooner slit your throat than shake your hand. At the center of the chaos, Jax Calder sits at a high-stakes table, his mechanical arm glinting under the stuttering glow of a hanging lamp. The cybernetic limb, a relic from a war he'd rather forget, hums faintly as he grips a stack of betting chips. His dark eyes, shadowed by a week's worth of stubble, scan the table with the precision of a predator. Jax needs credits, enough to buy back his younger brother, Finn, who's been held hostage by the Syndicate, a ruthless crime empire that doesn't forgive debts. Finn's life hangs on this game, and Jax is down to his last chips. The dealer, a bulbous-eyed alien with slimy skin and a voice like gravel scraped across metal, leers at him. Last hand, human. It rasps, its tongue flicking over jagged teeth. You in or out? Jax's jaw tightens. He glances at the pile of chips in front of him, barely enough to cover the minimum bet. Every muscle in his body screams to walk away, but Finn's face flashes in his mind, wide-eyed, trusting, begging Jax to keep him safe. He failed once. He won't fail again. With a slow, deliberate motion, he pushes his entire stack into the center of the table. All in, he says, his voice low but steady. Let's see who fate favors tonight. The crowd around the table, a mix of scaly reptilians, furred smugglers, and a few humans desperate enough to haunt this corner of the galaxy, lets out a collective murmur. Some scoff, others lean closer, their eyes glinting with the thrill of watching a man bet his life on a single hand. The dealer's eyes narrow, but it deals the cards with a flick of its webbed fingers, the holographic deck shimmering as it projects the game. Jax's heart pounds, but his face remains a mask of calm. He's played this game before, countless times, in dives and backrooms across the stars. The cards fall, a pair of neutron stars and a void ace. Not great, but not terrible. He locks eyes with the other players, a twitchy insectoid with clicking mandibles and a hooded figure whose face is hidden behind a mask. The insectoid folds, its antennae quivering. The hooded figure raises the bet, tossing in a fistful of chips that clatter like bones. Jax matches the raise, his mechanical fingers tapping the table in a rhythm only he understands. The final card flips, a supernova queen. His hand strengthens, a full constellation. It's a risk, but might be enough. The hooded figure hesitates, then folds, leaving Jax alone against the house. The dealer smirks, revealing its own hand, a black hole flush. A losing hand against Jax's. The crowd erupts in cheers and curses as the dealer shoves a mountain of chips toward Jax. He's won, more credits than he's seen in years. Enough to pay off Finn's debt and get him out of the Syndicate's clutches. But before he can scoop up his winnings, the dealer raises a clawed hand. Not so fast, human, it sneers. This table plays for more than credits. A heavy curtain at the back of the room parts, and two Syndicate enforcers, hulking brutes with cybernetic implants and glowing red visors, drag out a reinforced glass cage. Inside, a woman sits, her wrists bound with energy cuffs. Her silver hair catches the light like liquid starlight, and her piercing blue eyes lock on a Jax with a mix of defiance and calculation. Her skin shimmers faintly, marking her as an Aetherian, a rare and enigmatic species known for their diplomatic prowess and rumored psionic abilities. What the hell is this? Jax growls, rising from his seat. His mechanical arm whirs, ready to strike if needed. The dealer's grin widens, showing rows of needle-like teeth. Your prize, Calder. Lyra Voss, Aetherian diplomat. Worth more than any pile of credits. Do with her as you please. The crowd jeers, some shouting crude suggestions, others whispering about the Syndicate's reach. Jax's stomach twists. He's no saint, but he's not a slaver. He came for Finn, not to trade one life for another. He steps toward the cage, ignoring the Enforcer's warning glares. This wasn't the deal, he says, his voice dangerously low. Deals change, the dealer snaps. Take her, or walk away with nothing. Lyra's gaze doesn't waver. Release me, she says, her voice calm but edged with steel. Do that, and I'll pay you double whatever you're owed. More if you get me to safety. Jax hesitates. Her offer is tempting, credits to save Finn and maybe more. But the Syndicate doesn't play games they can't win. If he takes Lyra, he's painting a target on his back. If he walks away, Finn stays in chains. The crowd's chants grow louder, urging him to decide. His mechanical arm twitches, the servos humming as he weighs his options. Finally, he steps forward and punches a code into the cage's control panel. The glass slides open with a hiss, and the energy cuffs around Lyra's wrists deactivate. She stands, rubbing her wrists, her posture regal despite the tattered diplomatic robes clinging to her frame. Smart choice, she says, her eyes never leaving his. Don't thank me yet, Jax mutters, grabbing her arm to guide her through the crowd. The Syndicate enforcers watch, their visors glowing ominously, but they don't move. Not yet. As Jax and Lyra push toward the exit, the dealer's voice cuts through the noise. Run all you like, Calder, it calls. The Syndicate always collects. Jax doesn't look back. With Lyra at his side and the weight of his decision pressing down, he steps into the neon-lit chaos of Outpost Zeta, knowing he's just traded one kind of trouble for another. The airlock of the Nomad hisses shut, sealing Jax Calder and Lyra Voss inside the cramped, dimly lit cockpit of his battered starship. The hum of the engines vibrates through the metal floor, a low growl that's more felt than heard, like the pulse of a wounded beast. The ship's interior is a patchwork of mismatched panels, exposed wires, and flickering control screens, its scars telling stories of countless close calls across the galaxy. Outpost Zeta's neon glow fades through the viewport as Jax punches in coordinates, the stars ahead stretching into a cold, endless void. Jax slumps into the pilot's chair, its worn leather creaking under his weight. His mechanical arm, still buzzing from the tension of the casino, rests on the control yoke. He glances at Lyra, who stands near the airlock, rubbing her wrists where the energy cuffs left faint red marks. Her silver hair catches the faint glow of the cockpit's emergency lights, and her Aetherian skin shimmers like moonlight on water. She's studying the ship with a mix of curiosity and disdain, her sharp blue eyes flicking over every dent and dangling cable. Your ship, Lyra says, her voice smooth but laced with a sardonic edge, looks like a junk heap with delusions of flight. Jax snorts, not looking up from the controls. She's got me farther than most. If you don't like it, the airlock's right there. He jerks a thumb toward the hatch, his tone gruff but not entirely serious. Lyra steps forward, ignoring the jab, and leans against the console, her movements graceful despite the tattered state of her diplomatic robes. I'm serious, Mercenary. This thing can actually get us to Nova Station. The Nomad's tougher than she looks, Jax replies, flipping a switch that makes the ship lurch slightly as the thrusters engage. And I'm not a mercenary. Not anymore. Just a guy trying to fix a mess. Lyra raises an eyebrow, her gaze piercing. A mess called Finn, I presume? The brother you're so desperate to save. Jax's hand freezes on the yoke, his jaw tightening. He doesn't like how easily she's pieced that together, but then again, she's an Aetherian diplomat. Reading people is probably second nature. You heard that in the casino? He asks, his voice low-guarded. Crowds talk, Lyra says with a slight shrug. And you're not exactly subtle. Betting your life on a card game for a brother in Syndicate hands? That's a story even the drunkest smuggler could follow. Jax turns to face her, his dark eyes narrowing. Keep my brother's name out of your mouth, unless you've got something useful to say. Lyra doesn't flinch. Instead, she straightens, her expression softening just enough to hint at sincerity. I do. Get me to Nova Station, to the Aetherian embassy, and I'll make sure you're paid enough to buy your brother's freedom. More than enough. Jax leans back, studying her. The offer sounds too good, and in his experience, deals like that come with strings, big ones. Nova Station is a neutral hub, far enough from Syndicate territory to be safe, but getting there means crossing dangerous space. And Lyra Voss, with her regal bearing and guarded eyes, is no ordinary passenger. The Syndicate doesn't cage someone like her without a reason. What's an Aetherian diplomat doing in a Syndicate cage? He asks, his tone sharp. You're not just some bureaucrat. What's the real story? Lyra's lips press into a thin line, and for a moment, Jax thinks she won't answer. Then she sighs, brushing a strand of silver hair behind her ear. I was negotiating a trade agreement with a neutral faction when the Syndicate ambushed my convoy. They didn't want ransom. They wanted leverage. My people are influential. Holding me gives them power. Jax scoffs. And you expect me to believe they just handed you over to a card game? They didn't, Lyra says, her voice dropping to a near whisper. The casino was a front. The Syndicate runs Outpost Zeta's underbelly. That game was rigged to make sure I ended up with someone desperate enough to take the bait. Someone like you. The words hit like a punch. Jax's mechanical arm whirs as his fingers clench, the servos protesting. You saying I was set up? I'm saying we both were, Lyra replies, her eyes steady. The Syndicate doesn't let go of prizes like me, or debts like yours, without a plan. They'll come for us, Jax. Soon. The cockpit falls silent, save for the steady hum of the Nomad's engines. Jax's mind races. If Lyra's right, he's not just a guy who won a bad bet. He's a pawn in a game he doesn't understand. The Syndicate's reach is long, and their enforcers don't negotiate. But Finn's still out there, locked in some hellhole, and Jax can't afford to back down now. Fine, he says finally, his voice rough. Nova Station. You get your embassy, I get my credits. But if you're lying, or if this blows up in my face, you're on your own. Lyra nods, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Fair enough. But don't underestimate me, Calder. I'm more than a pretty face in a cage. Jax grunts, turning back to the controls. We'll see about that. As the Nomad accelerates into the void, the stars blur into streaks of light through the viewport. Jax keeps his eyes on the navigation screen, but his thoughts are elsewhere. On Finn, on the Syndicate, and on the enigmatic woman now sharing his ship. Lyra settles into the co-pilot's seat, her presence a quiet challenge. The deal is struck, but the real cost is still unclear. Outside, the galaxy waits, vast and unforgiving. And somewhere in the darkness, the Syndicate's hunters are already closing in. The stars streak past the Nomad's viewport, a blur of white against the infinite black as the ship hurtles toward Nova Station. Inside the cockpit, the air is thick with tension, the hum of the engines a constant reminder of the fragile truce between Jax Calder and Lyra Voss. Jax grips the controls, his mechanical arm steady despite the faint tremor in his flesh and blood hand. Lyra sits in the co-pilot's seat, her silver hair tucked behind her ears, her eyes scanning the navigation screen with a diplomat's precision. The silence between them is broken by a sudden, piercing wail from the ship's alarm system. Red lights flash across the console, bathing the cockpit in an ominous glow. Jax's heart lurches. What the hell? He starts, but the words die as the viewport reveals 3 sleek, black Syndicate interceptors emerging from the void, their hulls glinting like predators in the starlight. Syndicate, Lyra says, her voice sharp but calm. They found us faster than I expected. Jax doesn't respond. He slams the yoke forward, sending the Nomad into a steep dive as the first interceptor opens fire. Plasma bolts streak past, one grazing the ship's hull with a screech that reverberates through the cockpit. The impact shakes the floor, and a shower of sparks erupts from a nearby panel. Hold on, Jax shouts, banking hard to the left. His mechanical arm moves with inhuman speed, flipping switches to divert power to the shields. Lyra braces herself against the console, her face set in determination. Can you outrun them? She asks, her tone betraying a flicker of doubt. Not likely. Jax grunts, his eyes locked on the targeting display. These are Vulture-class ships. Fast and mean. We're gonna have to fight. He swings the Nomad into a tight spiral, dodging another volley of plasma fire. The ship groans under the strain, its patchwork frame protesting the maneuver. Lyra's gaze darts to the weapons panel. Your cannons are manual. You can't fly and shoot at the same time. Jax flashes a grim smile. That's why you're earning your keep. Get on the turret controls. Now, for a moment, Lyra hesitates, her diplomatic training at odds with the chaos unfolding. Then she nods, sliding into the gunner station. Her fingers dance over the controls, unfamiliar but quick to adapt. I've never fired a ship's cannon, she admits, her voice steady despite the confession. Point and shoot, Jax snaps. You'll figure it out. The interceptors close in, their formation tightening like a noose. Jax weaves the Nomad through a barrage of fire, the ship shuddering with each near miss. Lyra swivels the turret, her first shot going wide, a blue streak vanishing into the void. Damn it, she mutters, adjusting her aim. Her second shot clips an interceptor's wing, sending it spinning off course. Got one. Don't get cocky, Jax warns, yanking the ship into a climb to avoid a head-on collision. The lead interceptor locks onto them, its cannons charging with a menacing glow. Jax's mind races. He can't outmaneuver them forever, and the Nomad's shields are already flickering. Lyra's voice cuts through the chaos. I can help. Move us closer to that asteroid cluster ahead. Jax glances at the navigation screen, spotting the jagged rocks floating in the distance. You crazy? That's a death trap. Trust me, Lyra says, her eyes fierce. I can shield us. Against his better judgment, Jax steers toward the asteroids. The interceptors follow, their plasma bolts lighting up the darkness. As the Nomad weaves between the rocks, Lyra closes her eyes, her hands glowing with a faint, pulsating energy. A shimmering barrier erupts around the ship, deflecting a direct hit that would have torn through the hull. The cockpit vibrates with the impact, but the shield holds. Holy! Jax starts, glancing at her. What was that? Aetherian energy manipulation, Lyra says through gritted teeth, her focus unwavering. It's not perfect, but it'll buy us time. Jax doesn't argue. He pilots the Nomad deeper into the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. Lyra fires the turret again, this time blasting an interceptor's engine. The enemy ship explodes in a silent fireball, debris scattering into the void. The remaining interceptor hesitates, then peels off, retreating into the darkness. We're clear, Jax says, his voice tight with relief. But the victory is short-lived. A warning light blares on the console. Hull integrity critical. Engines overheating. Damn it, we took too many hits. Lyra releases her energy shield, slumping in her seat, her face pale from the effort. Can we make it to Nova Station? Not a chance, Jax says, scanning the navigation chart. There's an asteroid nearby, uninhabited, but it's got enough surface to land. We're setting down. He guides the Nomad toward the barren rock, the ship rattling as it descends. The landing is rough, the hull scraping against jagged stone with a teeth-grinding screech. When the engines finally cut out, the cockpit falls silent, the only sound Jax's heavy breathing and the faint tick of cooling metal. Lyra unbuckles her harness, her expression unreadable. That was closer than I'd like. Jax wipes sweat from his brow, his mechanical arm whirring as he leans back. Welcome to my world. You did good back there. For a diplomat. Lyra's lips twitch, almost a smile. And you're not half bad for a washed-up mercenary. The asteroid's surface is a desolate wasteland of jagged stone and swirling dust, illuminated only by the faint glow of distant stars and the flickering lights of the Nomad. The ship sits crookedly on the uneven ground, its hull scarred from the Syndicate's ambush, wisps of steam hissing from damaged conduits. The air is thin, carrying a metallic tang that clings to the back of Jax Calder's throat as he kneels beside the ship, his mechanical arm whirring as he wrestles with a scorched engine panel. Tools are scattered around him, glinting in the dim light, and sweat beads on his forehead despite the cold. Lyra Voss stands nearby, her silver hair catching the starlight as she paces the rocky terrain, a small handheld device glowing in her palm. Her diplomatic robes are torn at the hem, but her posture remains composed, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. The silence between them is heavy, broken only by the clank of Jax's wrench and the occasional crackle of static from the Nomad's damaged comms. Jax curses under his breath as a bolt refuses to budge. The ambush has left the ship in bad shape, leaking fuel, fried circuits, and a navigation system that's more guesswork than science. They're stranded until he can patch it up, and every minute on this rock feels like a countdown to another Syndicate attack. His thoughts drift to Finn, locked away somewhere, scared and alone. The image fuels his frustration, and he slams the wrench against the panel with a metallic clang. "Easy," Lyra says, glancing over. "Breaking your ship won't get us to Nova Station any faster." Jax glares at her, wiping grime from his face. "You want to help? Grab a tool. Otherwise, keep your advice to yourself." Lyra arches an eyebrow, but doesn't retort. Instead, she steps closer, her device emitting a soft hum as she scans the ship's hull. "I'm not a mechanic, but I can check for structural damage. Unless you'd rather I sit and look pretty." Jax snorts, a grudging half-smile tugging at his lips. Point taken. As he returns to the engine, Lyra's device beeps sharply. She frowns, kneeling beside Jax and brushing her fingers over his jacket, which lies crumpled on the ground. "What's this?" she murmurs, pulling a small, metallic chip from the pocket. It's no bigger than a coin, etched with Syndicate markings, its surface glinting ominously. Jax glances at it, his brow furrowing. Must have grabbed it in the casino. Thought it was junk. Lyra's expression darkens. This is no junk. She connects the chip to her device, her fingers moving with practiced precision. The screen flares to life, projecting a stream of encrypted data, charts, schematics, and fragmented audio logs. Lyra's eyes narrow as she decrypts the files, her Aetherian tech cutting through the Syndicate security like a blade. Jax pauses, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "What's it say?" Lyra doesn't answer immediately. Her lips press into a thin line, and when she finally speaks, her voice is low, almost a whisper. "It's about Finn." The wrench slips from Jax's hand, clattering against the stone. He's on his feet in an instant, his mechanical arm whirring as he looms over her. "What about Finn? Talk now." Lyra meets his gaze, unflinching. "He's not just a hostage for your debt. The Syndicate's running something called Project Nexus. They believe Finn has a rare neural ability, a genetic quirk that lets him interface with ancient technology. Tech no one else can control." Jax's chest tightens, his mind racing. "What kind of tech?" "Old," Lyra says, her voice grim. "Predates humanity's spread to the stars. The Syndicate thinks it's a weapon or a key to something bigger. They're experimenting on Finn at a prison world called Tartarus Prime. Even if you paid every credit you owe, they'd never let him go." The words hit Jax like a physical blow. His mechanical fist clenches, the servos whining with a high-pitched screech. "They're using my brother as a lab rat?" His voice is raw, barely controlled. "I'll tear their damn empire apart." Lyra stands, placing a hand on his arm. The contact is light but firm, grounding him. "You can't do that alone, Jax. Tartarus Prime is a fortress. You need a plan and help." Jax pulls away, pacing the rocky ground, his boots kicking up clouds of dust. "I've been alone my whole life. Got me this far, and it got Finn captured," Lyra says, her tone sharp but not cruel. "You want to save him? Stop acting like a lone wolf and start thinking like a team." Jax stops, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. Her words sting, but they're true. He spent years running from his mistakes, from the war that cost him his arm, from the deals that landed Finn in the Syndicate's hands. He can't run now. Not from this. He turns, his jaw set. "Then we get to Nova Station. You call your Aetherian friends, and we go get my brother. Together." Lyra nods, a flicker of respect in her eyes. "Together. But we need the Nomad flying first." Jax exhales, the weight of the revelation settling like a stone in his chest. He picks up the wrench, his movements deliberate. Then let's get to work. The asteroid's barren surface stretches endlessly under a sky of unblinking stars, the cold seeping through Jax Calder's jacket as he and Lyra Voss huddle inside the Nomad's cramped cockpit. Jax leans against the pilot's chair, his mechanical arm resting on the console, its servos clicking softly. His dark eyes are fixed on the Syndicate chip lying on the dashboard, its etched surface a grim reminder of Finn's fate. Lyra sits across from him, her silver hair tucked behind her ears, her Aetherian device projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. Tartarus Prime glows red on the display, a prison world buried deep in Syndicate territory. The silence between them is tense, not hostile, but charged with the gravity of what lies ahead. Lyra breaks the quiet, her voice calm but resolute. We can't go to Tartarus Prime alone, Jax. It's a fortress, automated defenses, armed guards, and tech that makes your ship look like a toy. We need help. Jax's jaw tightens. He's never been one for teams, not since the war that left him with a metal arm and a lifetime of regrets. But Finn's life depends on this, and the Syndicate's Project Nexus means credits won't buy his freedom. What kind of help? He asks, his tone gruff but open. Lyra taps her device, zooming the map to Nova Station, a neutral hub gleaming like a beacon. The Aetherian embassy there has resources, ships, soldiers, and codes to bypass Syndicate security. If I can reach my contacts, I'll get us what we need to infiltrate Tartarus Prime and extract Finn. Jax studies her, searching for a catch. Her offer is generous. Too generous for someone he's known less than a day. Why risk it? He asks, leaning forward. You're a diplomat, not a soldier. What's in this for you? Lyra's blue eyes meet his, unflinching. The Syndicate's ambitions don't stop with Finn. Project Nexus could destabilize the galaxy, my people included. Helping you stops them. And she hesitates, her voice softening. I know what it's like to lose someone. I won't let you face that alone. The confession catches Jax off guard. For a moment, he sees past her diplomatic poise to something raw, a glimpse of loss that mirrors his own. He pushes the thought aside, focusing on the plan. All right, Nova Station, then Tartarus Prime. But if your Aetherians bail, I'm going in anyway. They won't, Lyra says, her tone firm. But we need a strategy. Tartarus Prime's defenses are layered. Orbital cannons, surface drones, and an underground lab where Finn's likely held. We'll need stealth, not firepower. Jax nods, his mind already mapping the mission. The Nomad can run dark, avoid the cannons. I've got gear for ground ops, cloaking tech, EMP grenades. But the lab's a problem. Syndicate tech's always got redundancies. Lyra's fingers dance over her device, pulling up schematics from the decrypted chip. The lab's powered by a neural core. Ancient tech, like what they're using Finn for. I can disrupt it with an Aetherian pulse, but I'll need to be close. You get me in, I'll shut it down. Jax raises an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. You sure you're just a diplomat? Lyra's lips curve into a faint smile. I've negotiated with warlords and hacked embassy firewalls. You pick up a few tricks. The cockpit feels smaller, the shared purpose bridging the gap between them. Jax pulls up the ship's navigation, plotting a course to Nova Station. We'll need to dodge Syndicate patrols. And if your embassy pulls rank, you're on your own explaining why you're with a guy like me. Lyra laughs softly, a sound that cuts through the cockpit's gloom. I'll manage. But you, Calder, try not to shoot anyone before we get there. Jax grunts, a spark of amusement in his eyes. No promises. They spend the next hour refining the plan. Jax sketches entry points on the holomap, his knowledge of Syndicate tactics guiding their approach. Lyra adds intel from Aetherian archives, detailing Tartarus Prime's layout and guard rotations. Their voices overlap, cautious at first, then fluid, each filling gaps in the other's strategy. Jax feels a flicker of something unfamiliar. Trust, maybe, or at least the start of it. As they finalize the route, Lyra's device beeps, signaling a full charge. She powers it down, her expression serious. One more thing. Finn's neural ability, it's not just rare. It's a legacy, something humans and Aetherians share from a time before the stars split us. The Syndicate wants to twist it into a weapon. Jax's mechanical fist clenches, the metal creaking. They can try. I'll tear their legacy apart before they touch him again. Lyra nods, her gaze steady. Then we're agreed. Nova Station, then Tartarus Prime. For Finn. For Finn. Jax echoes, his voice low but resolute. With the plan set, Jax fires up the Nomad's engines. The ship shudders, lifting off the asteroid with a groan of strained metal. The stars beckon through the viewport. Nova Station, a distant hope. As they break orbit, Jax glances at Lyra, her profile sharp against the console's glow. She's not what he expected, not a liability, but a partner. The Syndicate looms ahead, and Tartarus Prime waits like a dragon's lair. But for the first time, Jax doesn't feel alone in the fight. The engines roar, and the Nomad surges forward, carrying their fragile alliance into the unknown. Nova Station looms like a city adrift in the void, its towering spires of glass and steel glowing against the black expanse of space. Shuttles and freighters weave through its orbit, their engines trailing streaks of blue plasma. Inside, the station hums with life. Merchants hawking wares in neon-lit bazaars, diplomats gliding through pristine corridors, and mercenaries lurking in shadowed cantinas. The air carries a mix of ozone, spice, and the faint buzz of 1,000 languages blending into a chaotic symphony. Jax Calder navigates the crowded central promenade, his mechanical arm tucked under a cloak to avoid attention. The weight of his pistol against his hip is a small comfort in this neutral hub where Syndicate spies could be anywhere. Lyra Voss walks beside him, her silver hair hidden under a hooded shawl, her diplomatic robes replaced with a practical jumpsuit. Her Aetherian grace draws curious glances, but her sharp eyes keep the crowd at a distance. They move with purpose, heading for the Aetherian embassy, their fragile alliance, now a lifeline for Finn. The embassy's entrance is a gleaming arch of crystal, guarded by drones that hum with quiet menace. Lyra taps a code into a panel, and the doors slide open, revealing a chamber of soft blue light and floating hollow displays. An Aetherian aide, her skin shimmering like Lyra's, greets them with a curt nod. Ambassador Voss, you're expected. The council awaits. Jax hangs back, his instincts screaming to stay alert. I'll wait here, he mutters. Don't take long. Lyra gives him a reassuring glance. I'll handle this. Stay out of trouble. She disappears into a lift, leaving Jax to lean against a pillar, his gaze scanning the room for threats. Inside the council chamber, Lyra faces a hollow projection of 3 Aetherian elders, their faces stern under ornate headpieces. The lead elder, a woman with eyes like twin moons, speaks first. Lyra Voss, your absence has jeoparded unrest. The Syndicate's aggression escalates, and our alliance with the core world's frays. You are to return to Aetheria immediately. Lyra's heart sinks, but her voice remains steady. I can't. There's a human boy, Finn, held on Tartarus Prime. The Syndicate's experimenting on him. Project Nexus threatens us all. I need resources to stop them. The elder's expression hardens. Your duty is to Aetheria, not some human's cause. The boy is not our concern. Return, or face sanctions. Lyra's fists clench at her sides, her mind flashing to Jax's desperate resolve, to Finn's unknown suffering. She spent years obeying orders, smoothing tensions, sacrificing her own desires for diplomacy. But this feels right. No, she says, her voice ringing with defiance. I won't abandon them. Sanction me if you must, but I'm seeing this through. The elders' images flicker, their voices rising in protest, but Lyra cuts the connection, her breath shaky, but her resolve ironclad. She strides out to find Jax, who straightens at her approach, reading the fire in her eyes. They're pulling you back, aren't they? He asks, his tone wary. They tried, Lyra replies, a bitter edge to her smile. I told them no. We're on our own, but I've got a plan. Jax's eyebrows lift, a spark of respect in his gaze. You just burned your career for this. Why? Lyra meets his eyes, her voice low but fierce. Because Finn deserves a chance. And because you're not the only one who's tired of losing people. For a moment, Jax is silent, the weight of her choice sinking in. Then he nods, a rare softness in his expression. All right, Voss. What's the plan? Lyra leads him through the station's underbelly, where the polished corridors give way to grimy maintenance docks. The air here is thick with oil and the clang of machinery. Lyra points to a sleek Syndicate scout ship docked in a restricted bay, its black hull marked with crimson insignia. That's our ride. Small, fast, and equipped with stealth tech. I can use my diplomatic codes to bypass the lockdown. Jax whistles softly. Stealing from a Syndicate on their own turf? Ballsy. Necessary, Lyra corrects, her fingers already working on her device to hack the bay's security. We need speed and surprise to reach Tartarus Prime. Jax scans the dock, spotting 2 Syndicate guards patrolling nearby, their rifles slung casually. Guards, I'll handle them. You get that ship open. Lyra nods, her focus locked on the hack. Jax slips into the shadows, his cloak blending with the dim light. He moves like a predator, his mechanical arms silent, as he closes in. A quick jab to one guard's neck drops him soundlessly. The other barely turns before Jax's boot sends him sprawling. He drags them behind a crate, his pulse steady despite the risk. By the time he returns, Lyra has the ship's hatch open, its interior glowing with crimson light. We're in, she whispers, slipping inside. Jax follows, sealing the hatch behind them. The cockpit is cramped but advanced, its controls sleek and unfamiliar. Lyra slides into the co-pilot's seat, inputting her codes to override the Syndicate's security protocols. The ship hums to life, its engines purring with restrained power. Jax takes the pilot's chair, his hands steady on the controls. Hope you're as good with codes as you are with words, he says, a hint of a grin. Better, Lyra replies, her fingers flying across the console. The dock's alarm stays silent, her hack holding firm. As the ship lifts off, slipping past Nova Station's defenses, Jax glances at Lyra. You sure about this? No turning back now. Lyra's eyes are fixed on the stars ahead. Tartarus Prime, a distant threat. I've never been sure. The scout ship accelerates, vanishing into the void, a stolen arrow aimed at the heart of the Syndicate's prison world. Finn's rescue is within reach, but the cost of their defiance is only beginning to unfold. Tartarus Prime looms below, a jagged sphere of ash and iron, its surface scarred by gaping mines that belch sulfurous smoke into a sky choked with gray clouds. The stolen Syndicate scout ship glides silently, its stealth systems cloaking it from the planet's orbital cannons. Inside the cockpit, Jax Calder grips the controls, his mechanical arm steady despite the sweat stinging his eyes. The air is thick with the hum of the ship's systems and the faint tang of recycled oxygen. Lyra Voss sits beside him, her face illuminated by the glow of her Aetherian device, her fingers tense as she monitors the planet's defense grid. The descent is a nerve-wracking dance through a web of sensors and drone patrols. Jax's jaw clenches as he threads the ship between towering slag heaps, the hull scraping against a rocky outcrop with a teeth-grinding screech. Close one, he mutters, his voice barely audible over the engine's low whine. Lyra's eyes don't leave her screen. We're clear. Landing zones ahead, old mining shaft, minimal guards. Jax sets the ship down in the shadow of a collapsed tunnel, the ground trembling faintly from distant explosions in the mines. The hatch opens, and a wave of heat and ash washes over them, the air heavy with the stench of molten metal. Jax slings a rifle over his shoulder, his cloak dusted gray within seconds. Lyra tucks her device in her belt, her jumpsuit blending with the bleak terrain. They move as one, silent and purposeful, toward the Syndicate's detention facility, a fortress of black steel embedded in the mountainside, its walls bristling with turrets. The main gate is a no-go, crawling with drones that sweep the area with red laser grids. Jax points to a maintenance duct half hidden by rubble. There, we crawl in, avoid the patrols. Lyra nods, her expression grim. Lead the way. The duct is a claustrophobic nightmare, its walls slick with grime and vibrating with the facility's pulse. Jax's mechanical arm scrapes against the metal, each clank a risk of detection. Lyra follows, her breathing steady despite the oppressive heat. They emerge in a dimly lit corridor, the air humming with the buzz of machinery. Two Syndicate guards round the corner, their visors glinting. Jax moves like a shadow, his mechanical fist cracking one guard's helmet before the other can raise his rifle. Lyra catches the second with a precise stun pulse from her device, and they drag the bodies into a storage closet. Sloppy, Jax whispers, checking the corridor. They're spread thin. Or they're confident, Lyra replies, her voice tight. The lab's deeper, level 3. They descend through a maze of sterile hallways, dodging drone patrols and disabling cameras with Lyra's tech. The deeper they go, the louder the hum of the neural core grows, a low throb that sets Jax's teeth on edge. His heart pounds, Finn's name a mantra in his mind. At the lab's entrance, a massive door looms, guarded by a single drone, a hulking machine with spinning blades and glowing sensors. Jax pulls an EMP grenade from his belt. Cover me. Lyra creates a faint energy shield, her hands glowing softly. Jax rolls into the open, lobbing the grenade. The drone sparks and collapses in a heap, but an alarm blares, red lights flashing. Move! Jax shouts, blasting the door's lock with his rifle. The lab is a cavern of cold steel and flickering monitors, dominated by a towering machine pulsing with green light. Finn lies strapped to a table at its center, wires snaking from his temples to the device, his face pale and gaunt. Jax's breath catches, his vision narrowing to his brother's fragile form. Finn, he calls, rushing forward. Finn's eyes flutter open, bright with recognition despite his weakness. Jax, you came back. Always, kid, Jax says, his voice breaking as he rips the wires free, cradling Finn's trembling frame. The boy's pulse is faint, but he's alive. Lyra's at the machine, her hands glowing as she channels Aetherian energy into its core. This is it, neural core. Hold them off. Boots pound outside, and Syndicate guards pour in, their rifles blazing. Jax shields Finn, returning fire with deadly precision, each shot a burst of plasma that drops a soldier. His mechanical arm absorbs a hit, sparking but holding. Lyra grunts, her energy pulse surging, and the machine shudders, its lights dying in a shower of sparks. The core explodes in a controlled blast, shaking the lab. Time to go, Lyra yells, grabbing Jax's arm. Jax hoists Finn over his shoulder, the boy's weight a painful reminder of his frailty. They sprint through collapsing corridors, alarms screaming as drones swarm. Lyra's shield deflects a barrage of shots, but it flickers under the strain. Jax kicks open an emergency exit, and they burst into a hangar where their scout ship waits. Guard close in, but Jax lays down cover fire, his rifle roaring. Lyra drags Finn aboard, strapping him into a seat. Jax dives into the pilot's chair, slamming the controls. The ship lurches upward, smashing through the hangar's bay doors into the ashen sky. They're not safe yet. The facility's turrets lock on, and Syndicate fighters scream into pursuit. Jax's hands blur over the controls, weaving through a hail of plasma. Finn's weak voice cuts through the chaos. You never give up, do you? Jax glances back, his eyes fierce. Not on you, kid. Never. The fight's far from over, and Tartarus Prime's wrath chases them into the void. The scout ship streaks through Tartarus Prime's orbit, its hull glowing red from turret fire. Inside, the cockpit is a frenzy of flashing warnings and shrieking alarms. Jax wrestles with the controls, his mechanical arms straining as he dodges a missile that explodes too close, rocking the ship. Lyra straps Finn into a medical pod, her hands steady despite the chaos, her device scanning his vitals. The boy's breathing is shallow, but he's stable, for now. Syndicate fighters swarm like hornets, their lasers carving glowing arcs across the void. Jax pushes the ship into a suicidal spin, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. "We can't outrun them," he shouts, sweat dripping down his face. "They've got us locked." Lyra's eyes dart to her device, her voice urgent. "I sent a distress signal from Nova Station. If the Aetherians got it." "If," Jax snaps, banking hard to avoid another volley. The ship groans, its stealth systems fried, leaving them exposed. A new blip appears on the radar. Massive, moving fast. Jax's heart sinks, expecting a Syndicate cruiser. Instead, a fleet of Aetherian warships emerges from hyperspace, their sleek hulls gleaming like silver blades. Their cannons roar, shredding the Syndicate fighters in a blaze of light. A transmission crackles through. "Ambassador Voss, this is Commander Lyra. Stand down and follow our escort." Lyra exhales, a rare smile breaking through. They came. Jax doesn't relax, but he eases the ship into formation, the Aetherian fleet shielding them. The Syndicate survivors scatter, outmatched. The scout ship docks with an Aetherian cruiser, and medics rush Finn to a healing bay. Jax stays by his brother's side, his hand gripping Finn's frail one. Lyra watches from the doorway, her face a mix of relief and resolve. The Aetherian homeworld shimmers like a jewel against the velvet void, its surface a tapestry of glowing forests and crystalline seas. Cities float above the clouds, their spires of translucent stone catching the light of twin suns. The Aetherian cruiser glides into a docking bay, its hull reflecting the vibrant hues of a bioluminescent canopy below. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of ozone and sweet nectar, a stark contrast to the ash and iron of Tartarus Prime. Jax Calder steps onto the platform, his boots echoing softly, his mechanical arm glinting under the soft light. Finn rests in a hover chair beside him, his face still pale, but his eyes brighter, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Lyra Voss leads the way, her jumpsuit replaced with flowing Aetherian robes, her silver hair catching the breeze. They're escorted to a medical sanctuary, a dome of frosted glass nestled in a grove of trees that pulse with faint light. Inside, the air hums with the gentle thrum of healing tech, and medics in shimmering tunics tend to Finn. Jax hovers nearby, his hand never straying far from Finn's shoulder, as if afraid his brother might vanish again. The lead medic, a woman with eyes like liquid starlight, adjusts a device over Finn's chest. "His neural pathways are stabilizing," she says, her voice melodic. "The Syndicate's experiments cause strain, but he'll recover with time." Jax exhales, the knot in his chest loosening slightly. "Thanks," he mutters, his voice rough but sincere. Finn grips his hand, weak but determined. "I'm okay, Dux. You got me out." "Had to," Jax replies, his throat tight. "You're all I've got." Lyra watches from a distance, her expression soft but guarded. She's relieved Finn's safe, but the weight of her defiance at Nova Station lingers. The Aetherian Council hasn't contacted her yet, and the silence feels like a storm brewing. She steps outside, needing air, and Jax follows, sensing her unease. They stand on a balcony overlooking the glowing forest, the trees swaying in a rhythm that feels almost alive. The night air is cool, carrying the faint chime of distant bells. "You're quiet," Jax says, leaning against the railing, his mechanical arm clicking softly. "Regretting that stunt with the council?" Lyra's lips twitch, but her eyes stay on the horizon. "Not regretting, just wondering what comes next. I broke protocol, defied orders. They might strip my title, or worse." Jax studies her, his usual gruffness softening. "You did it for Finn. For me. That's not nothing." Lyra turns to him, her blue eyes searching his. "It wasn't just for you. The Syndicate's plans, Project Nexus, Finn's neural ability, it's bigger than us. I couldn't walk away, not after seeing what they did to him." Jax nods, his gaze dropping to the forest below. "You said his ability's a legacy. What's that mean exactly?" Lyra hesitates, choosing her words carefully. "Long ago, before humans and Aetherians split across the stars, our ancestors shared a gift. neural resonance, a way to connect with ancient machines. Most lost it, but some, like Finn, still carry it. The Syndicate wants to weaponize that connection, control tech that could reshape the galaxy. Jax's mechanical fist clenches, the servos whining. They'll have to go through me first. Lyra's hand brushes his arm, a fleeting touch that grounds him. And me? You're not alone anymore, Jax. Neither is Finn. The words hit deeper than Jax expects. He spent years running, through wars, debts, and guilt. Always alone, always carrying the weight of Finn's safety. Lyra's presence, her choice to stand by him, cracks that isolation. He looks at her, really looks, seeing the strength behind her grace, the fire behind her calm. You're not what I expected, he says, his voice low. Thought you'd be a liability. Turns out, you're the one keeping us alive. Lyra's smile is small but genuine. And you're not just a mercenary. You're something more. She pauses, her voice softening. Where do you belong, Jax? After all this, where's home? Jax glances back at the sanctuary, where Finn rests. Wherever he is. But he meets her gaze, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. Maybe there's room for more than just him now. The moment lingers, charged with unspoken possibility. The forest's glow pulses brighter, as if mirroring their connection. Lyra steps closer, her hand resting on the railing beside his. You belong where you choose to be. If you want, that could be here. With me. Jax doesn't answer right away, but his silence isn't rejection. He feels the pull of her words, the idea of a life beyond running. For the first time, he doesn't push it away. A medic interrupts, calling them back to Finn. The boy's awake, sitting up, his color returning. He grins at Jax, a spark of his old mischief. This place is wild. Think they'd let me stay. Jax ruffles his hair, a rare laugh escaping. Don't get too comfortable, kid. We got things to settle. Lyra kneels beside Finn, her voice gentle. You're safe now. That's what matters. As the suns rise, casting golden light over the sanctuary, Jax and Lyra stand together, Finn between them. The Aetherian council chamber glows with an ethereal light, its walls of polished crystal refracting the golden rays of the twin suns. The air hums with a faint resonance, like the echo of a distant song, and the scent of blooming vines drifts from an open terrace. Jax Calder stands at the chamber's center, his boots scuffing the smooth floor, his mechanical arm catching glints of light. Finn sits nearby in a hover chair, his strength returning, his eyes wide with curiosity as he takes in the towering figures of the Aetherian elders. Lyra Voss stands beside Jax, her silver hair braided, her robes flowing like liquid starlight. The council, 5 elders seated in a crescent of translucent thrones, regards them with expressions ranging from curiosity to stern disapproval. The lead elder, a man with a voice like rolling thunder, speaks first. Jax Calder, Lyra Voss, you have brought turmoil to our doorstep. The Syndicate's wrath grows, and your actions on Tartarus Prime have stirred a hornet's nest. Yet, you've also uncovered a threat, Project Nexus, that endangers all. Speak. What do you seek? Jax shifts his jaw tight. He's faced gunfire and betrayal, but this, standing before a council of near-mythic beings, feels like a different kind of battle. Finn's gaze steadies him, a reminder of why he's here. I want Finn safe, he says, his voice rough but firm. The Syndicate's after him, his ability. I won't let them touch him again. The Elder's eyes narrow. And you, Lyra Voss? You defied our orders, risked our neutrality. What? Lyra steps forward, her posture unyielding. Because the Syndicate's ambition threatens more than one boy. Finn's neural resonance could unlock ancient technology, weapons, systems, power beyond imagining. If we ignore this, we invite our own destruction. A murmur ripples through the council, but Jax's focus shifts to Finn, who looks small but resolute. The boy's been through hell, yet he's still here, still fighting. Jax's chest aches with guilt for the deals that led to Finn's capture, but also with a fierce pride. He's not just fighting for redemption anymore. He's fighting for a future. The second elder, a woman with a voice like a soft chime, leans forward. Finn's gift is a legacy of our shared past, human and Aetherian. The Syndicate seeks others like him, prisoners they've taken across the stars. We offer sanctuary for you and the boy, Jax Calder, but neutrality is our way. To act against the Syndicate risks war. Jax's mechanical fist clenches, the servos whining. Sanctuary sounds like a cage, a place to hide while others suffer. He thinks of the prisoners Lyra mentioned, of the Syndicate's labs churning out weapons from stolen lives. He spent years running from his past. War, loss, the mistakes that cost him his arm and nearly Finn. Running stops now. I'm done hiding, Jax says, his voice cutting through the chamber's hum. The Syndicate's not just after Finn. They're building something bigger, and they'll burn through anyone to get it. I've seen what they do, Finn's proof. You offer safety, fine, but I'm not sitting this out. I'll fight them, with or without you. Lyra's eyes flicker with surprise, then pride. She steps closer, her voice steady. He's right. Neutrality won't stop the Syndicate. They'll come for your worlds, your people, just as they did for Finn. I've seen their plans, their hunger. Let us fight together. The elders exchange glances, their faces unreadable. Finn speaks up, his voice quiet but clear. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. Jax, he's always protected me. Let him protect others. The words hit Jax like a physical blow, stirring a resolve he hasn't felt since the war. He meets Lyra's gaze, finding strength in her unwavering presence. She's no longer just an ally. She's a partner, someone who's chosen to stand with him when she could have walked away. The lead elder rises, his robes shimmering. Your words carry weight, but action carries cost. If we commit, we risk all we've built. Yet, the legacy you speak of binds us. We will convene to decide. For now, you may remain. Jax nods, but his mind is already racing. The Syndicate won't wait for debates. He turns to Lyra as they leave the chamber, Finn's hoverchair gliding beside them. The terrace outside overlooks a city of floating spires, the air alive with the hum of life. Jax stops, his voice low. They might say no. If they do, I'm still going after the Syndicate. You in. Lyra's hand finds his, her grip firm, her eyes blazing with determination. I've been in since Nova Station. This fight's bigger than us, Jax. We'll face it together. Jax feels the weight of her words, the promise of shared path. He looks at Finn, who grins despite his fatigue. You two are going to be trouble, aren't you? The boy says, a spark of his old mischief returning. Always, Jax replies, a rare smile breaking through. He squeezes Lyra's hand, the gesture grounding him in a way he hasn't felt in years. As the suns dip below the horizon, casting the city in a warm glow, Jax feels a shift within. The road ahead is perilous, the Syndicate a looming giant. But with Finn safe and Lyra by his side, he's ready to face it, not as a lone mercenary, but as part of something greater. The Council's decision looms, but Jax's is made. The fight is just beginning, and he's all in.